Arizona without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Over the past few months, there's been a disturbing stream of articles in the media, and common among them is that they cite leaked, classified, or highly sensitive information in what appears to be a broader administration effort to paint a portrait of the President of the United States as a strong leader on national security issues, information for which there is no legitimate reason whatsoever to believe should be in the public domain. Indeed, the release of this information in these articles harms our national security and puts in danger the lives of the men and women who are sworn to protect it. What price was paid by the administration to proliferate such a presidential persona highly valued in an election year? Access to senior administration officials who appear to have served as anonymous sources, divulging extremely sensitive military and intelligence information and operations. With the leaks that these articles were based on, our enemies now know much more than they did the day before they came out about important aspects of our nation's unconventional offensive capabilities and how we use them. Such disclosures can only undermine similar ongoing or future operations, and in this sense, it compromises our national security. For this reason, regardless of how politically useful these leaks may have been to the President, they have to stop. These leaks have to stop. The fact that this administration would aggressively pursue leaks perpetrated by a 22-year-old Army private in the WikiLeaks matter, former CIA employees in other leaks cases, but apparently sanction leaks made by senior administration officials for political purposes is simply unacceptable. It also calls for the need for a special counsel to investigate what happened. I'm also pleased to report that Chairman Carl Levin has agreed at my request to hold hearing on these leaks in the Senate Armed Services Committee. The Senate Armed Services Committee has a responsibility here, and I'm grateful that Chairman Levin has agreed to hold a hearing. In the latest of the recently published articles, published on June 1st, 2012, just a few days ago, the New York Times documented in rich detail the President's secret decision to accelerate cyber attacks on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities with a computer virus that came to be known as Stuxnet. The author of the article, Mr. David Sanger, clearly states that former and current American officials spoke to him but refused to do so on the record because the program is both highly classified and parts of it are ongoing. I repeat, administration officials discussed a most highly classified operation that is both highly classified and still ongoing. An operation that was clearly one of the most tightly held national security secrets in our country until now. And I might point out to my colleagues that this is all about the Iranian effort to acquire nuclear weapons, one of the most difficult national security challenges that this nation faces. Other recent articles divulged critical and classified information regarding U.S. plans to expand the secret drone campaign against terrorists in Yemen and the Horn of Africa. One of these pieces was a sorry excuse for journalism that the New York Times published on May 29, 2012, which Charles Krauthammer rightly observed should have been entitled Barack Obama, Drone Warrior. Finally, there was a recent article about the so-called kill list, the highly classified or sensitive list of counterterrorism targets against whom the president has authorized lethal action, in other words, to kill. It was even reported in that article, May 29, 2012, in the New York Times, that David Axelrod, the president's chief political advisor, who's running his re-election campaign as we speak, began attending the meetings in which this list was discussed. I repeat, the president's campaign manager was present and attending the meetings where lists of possible people to be eliminated through drone strikes was discussed and decisions were made. The only conceivable motive for such damaging and compromising leaks of classified information is that it makes the president look good. These are not the only times I've been frustrated about national security-related leaks coming from this administration. The administration similarly helped journalists publish some of the highly sensitive tactics, techniques, and procedures that enabled our special operations forces, including the classified name of the unit involved, to carry out the operation to kill Osama bin Laden last year. It's entirely possible that this flurry of anonymous boasting was responsible for divulging the identity of Dr. Shakil Afridi, the Pakistani doctor who assisted us in our search for Osama bin Laden and whose public exposure led to his detention and 33-year prison sentence in Pakistan. His name was divulged by members of the administration, and he has been basically given a death sentence, 33-year sentence in prison in Pakistan. You know, our friends are not the only ones that read the New York Times. Our enemies do too. Let me be clear. I am fully in favor of transparency in government. I've spent my entire career in Congress furthering that principle, but what separates these sort of leaks from, say, the whistleblowing that fosters open government or a free press is that these leaks expose no violations of law, abuses of authority, or threats to public health or safety. They are gratuitous and utterly self-serving. These leaks may inhibit the nation's ability to employ the same or similar measures in its own defense in the future. How effectively the United States can conduct unmanned drone strikes against belligerents, cyber attacks against Iran's nuclear program, or military operations against terrorists in the future depends on the secrecy with which these programs are conducted. Such activities are classified or enormously sensitive for good reason. In many cases, for reasons related to operational security or diplomacy. Their public disclosure should have no place in how this or any other administration conducts itself. These are the kinds of operations and intelligence matters that no one should discuss publicly, not even the president. With this in mind, I call on the president to take immediate and decisive action, including the appointment of a special counsel to aggressively investigate the leak of any classified information on which the recent stories were based, and where appropriate, to prosecute those responsible. A special counsel will be needed because the articles on the U.S. cyber attacks on Iran and expanded plans by the U.S. to use drones in Yemen were sourced to quote, and I quote from the articles, participants in the cyber attack program and, quote, members of the president's national security team. In the cyber attacks article in particular, the author stated that, and I quote, current and former American officials, unquote, spoke to him anonymously about the program because, quote, the effort remains highly classified and parts of it continue to this day. What could be worse? The suggestion that misconduct occurred within the executive branch is right there in black and white, and why a special counsel is needed. As part of this investigation, this special counsel should also scrutinize the book from which the New York Times cyber attacks article was adapted, which was just released yesterday for other improper or illegal disclosures. Where classified information regarding cyber operations was leaked, the President should assess any damage that those leaks may have caused to national security and how that damage can be mitigated. In my view, the administration should be taking these leaks, apparently perpetrated by senior administration officials, as seriously as it pursued those made by relatively low government personnel, such as the Army private in the WikiLeaks matter, or the former CIA employee who provided the New York Times with classified information about U.S. attempts to sabotage the Iranian nuclear program. The failure of the administration to do so would confirm what today is only an inference, that these leaks were in fact sanctioned by the administration to serve a pure political purpose. As I continue to closely monitor developments in this matter, I hope to be proved wrong. There's a Wall Street Journal article, FBI probes leaks about cyber attacks by U.S. I'm glad that the FBI is going to probe that. Said that Mr. Sanger, in an appearance on CBS News' Face the Nation, suggested that deliberate White House leaking, quote, wasn't my experience. He added, I spent a year working on the story from the bottom up and then went to the administration and told them what I had. Then they had to make some decisions about how much they wanted to talk about. He said, I'm sure the political side of the White House probably likes reading about the president acting with drones and cyber and so forth. National security side has got very mixed emotions about it because these are classified programs. Mr. Sanger, again, is authenticating that senior members of the White House and our intelligence community decided to talk to him about classified programs. Their motivation for doing so, perhaps we don't know particularly at this time, but I don't think you could argue that these articles have all conveyed the impression that the president is a very strong warrior in carrying out his responsibilities as commander-in-chief, something that I have disputed as far as Iraq, Afghanistan, and other national security issues, which I will discuss at another day. So, Mr. President, I don't know how you could draw any conclusion, but senior members of this administration in the national security arena have either leaked or confirmed information of the most highly classified and sensitive nature. Some of these leaks have concerned ongoing operations. Since they were highly classified and sensitive information, that classification was there for a reason. The reason being is if that information was classified, it could harm our national security. These are very serious actions on their part. It's very serious actions when ongoing operations in the war against terror and the issue of Iranian acquisition of nuclear weapons, which could trigger attacks either by Israel or the United States to prevent such an eventuality. We now find leaks which have exposed not only to the American people but to the Iranians as well exactly what American activity is of the most sensitive nature. This is not a proud day for the United States of America. Mr. President, I suggest